welcome to this channel. My name is Janet. I'm working through the King James Bible, and today I am on Genesis chapters 24 and 25. So I'm going to give a quick overview of each one. I hope you find this useful. If you're going through the Bible yourself, make sure to read it fully yourself. The links are under this video, so the two chapters are there ready for whenever you want to read them. So here we go, starting with chapter 24. We're now moving on to where Abraham is looking for a wife for his son Isaac, and he starts speaking to his servant. Now he's asking his servant to swear that his son Isaac's wife will be from his hometown, not Canaan. He doesn't want him from Canaan. He doesn't want her from Canaan, sorry. He wants her from his hometown. So he sends his servant to go find this woman. The servant asks before he goes, he says, but what if she doesn't want to leave? What if she doesn't want to leave where she is? And he says, should I bring Isaac there? So should he take Isaac over to the land with him? Abraham says no, because he's got faith in God. He has faith that God has promised that he will give the land of Canaan to his offspring. So he has this faith, and he says that God will bring an angel to bring a wife back. That's what he has faith in. So the servant trusts in that, what Abraham has said, and he goes off on his way with 10 camels and a lot of gifts from Abraham. So on his journey towards Nahor, that's where he's going, he stops off at this well, and he stops there specifically at a time when he knows the women will be there. But when he arrives, he has a prayer, and he prays specifically to God. He wants a sign, a specific sign, and he wants the woman to come up, offer him a drink, and also offer his camels a drink as well. That's his prayer. And as he's praying, just before he finishes it, this woman, Rebecca, shows up, and she offers him water and the camels. And he's like, oh, he's kind of like, I need to make sure this is true. But he offers her jewels, so he gives her jewels, and she gets excited because then he starts learning that she is actually Isaac's cousin. Now in our world this wouldn't feel right, but back then there wasn't that many people, and so in order to create a lineage, this is what had to happen. Incest had to happen back then. So Rebecca is thrilled to learn this news of why the servant is there, that he's looking for a wife for Isaac to take back, and she takes him to her family, all excited, and explains the details. Well, the servant explains why he's there. He had this prayer, and that she'd come, and just as he'd had that prayer, and all excited, and saying that he wants to take her back to Canaan to be a wife for Isaac, and they are all thrilled. And so the guys who went with the servant and the camels, they all stay overnight, just for the night rest before their journey tomorrow. But on the morning, the family say to the servant, look, why don't we keep Rebecca here for 10 days or so, before she actually goes? And the servant's like, no way, no, it's now, that's it, we've got to go now. And they're like, oh, well, we'll let Rebecca choose what she wants to do. And she agrees. She thinks, yep, I need to go now. This is time. The decision has been made. Why wait? Let's just go. So they bless Rebecca. They bless her to have numerous children. And they send her on the way with the servant. And off they go back to Canaan. And then as she's approaching Canaan, Isaac is praying. And she covers her face just out of respect. He's very holy in that moment when you're praying. And then he looks at her, they look at each other, and they just fall in love. Oh, isn't that lovely? And that is where chapter 24 ends. So that is the ending of that chapter. And what a story. How we go through life and we don't hesitate. We make a decision and we go with it. Why wait the 10 days? That's what I saw from that story. Why wait 10 days? What's 10 days going to do? It's going to mull over, it's going to cause indecision, it's going to cause all this thinking, which is a lot of the times what we do, and then we can change totally the course of history. So yeah, they made the decision, the blessing was done, he knew that she was the right one, They went back and it all worked out beautifully. So now let's move on to chapter 25. This is when Abraham actually remarries. So he remarries another wife who's called Keturah. And they have more children. And if you want to know all of the names, again, the link is under this video so you can check out the chapter specifically for the names, but they have 6 children. So he's expanding his lineage again as he's getting older. And Abraham decides to give everything to Isaac, and he sends the rest of his children away to the east. And I think that is really down to, if you look back to Cain and Abel and all the, like, you know, if he's given everything, it's like there's this jealousy, this greed and all these things, so out of sight, out of mind kind of thing. So move them off to the east, let Isaac get on with his life. And so that's what happens. And then he gives his other children gifts and things while he's alive, and then Abraham dies at a good old age of 175. 175, wow, that is a good old age, isn't it? So he's buried right alongside where he bought that land, the cave where his wife Sarah is. He's buried there, and then his son Isaac is blessed. That's what it says. So we move on to Ishmael now. Remember Ishmael, who is the other son of Abraham? He's out there in the desert having a life there, and so it brings us to his life and his children. And again, we see the lineage moving. So again, check out the links under here for the names of all the children, but he has 12 children. And then it says he dies at 137, and his offspring, they live in hostility. That's what it says. So what is going on there? I guess he is that other half, where Isaac is the true blood of Sarah and Abraham, whereas Ishmael is the servant of Sarah. He's the servant's, that's his mother to Abraham. So it's slightly changed, and it's almost like that slip of change, which wasn't meant to happen, that wasn't what God was willing, has kind of changed the course of his life and his lineage. You know, there's that kind of inner hostility going on. So we see the ending of Ishmael there, but I'm sure at some point, as this Bible has been showing, we jump back to find out more of the story on Ishmael, so I will keep looking out for that. So we're back at Isaac and Rebekah, who marry when Isaac is 40 years old. So they are married, but the problem is in their marriage that Rebekah cannot have children. And she says to Isaac, I can't have children. So she's really upset about this. And so Isaac prays to the Lord for her to have children. He prays. And so the Lord always delivers in the Bible, and so she becomes pregnant with twins. So not just one, she has 2. But they start fighting in her belly. She can feel it. And she asks the Lord, what is going on? Why are they doing it? And he says, God says, there will be opposing nations, and the eldest will serve the youngest. So the eldest is going to serve the youngest. That's what God is saying here. So they have the children. The first baby is called Esau, and he comes out red and hairy. He's quite red and hairy. And then the second son, Jacob, he is grasping at his brother's heel as he's coming out of the womb. So there we already have, like, showing characteristics of the two. Now Isaac was 60 years old when the twins were born. And Esau became a hunter. So his world is going into the hunter world, and was loved by Isaac. And it says Jacob was a homeboy. He stayed at home and he was loved by Rebekah. So Esau goes to Jacob begging for stew. So he's been out hunting, and he comes back and he begs his brother, please, because he's obviously at home cooking, doing different things. Please, can I have some stew? Will you get me some stew? And while Jacob sees him, obviously needing something from him, he decides to say, this is what he says. Jacob says, I'll give you some stew, but only if you sell me your birthright. So he won't give him any stew unless he serves him his birthright. Now this is a pretty strong thing for him to ask, but Ishu doesn't even think twice. He just goes, oh yeah, so I swear, and just gets the stew. He just wants the stew and goes for it straight away, not even thinking about what he has done. So he's eating the stew, and at that time he has given up his birthright to his brother. A pretty serious case, and that ends chapter 25. So what is going to be the repercussions of that? That's what I'm thinking, you know. It's like when a decision has to be made, you've got to think it through. So we've got two chapters kind of showing different things. We've got chapter 24 where it's saying, you know, where the family are wanting to postpone a decision, you know, hold on 10 days before Rebecca goes and we can think things through and then go. Whereas in chapter 25, the decision is made too quickly without any thought. So there is a balance, isn't there? You want to make a decision, but you want to make sure you thought it through. Whereas, you know, if you look at Abraham, he knew there was a wife in his hometown that God was going to serve, and so he had that all in place first. So the decision was made early on before, and so when that is in place, then make the decision quick. Whereas with Ishu, his decision had not been thought about. He was just going with what? His hunger, his human kind of urges, and he was just acting on those, not really giving thought to the decisions that were being made when he went there. So there are going to be repercussions for that. Now, does this bring anything up in your life where you may have done things like this, you know, and how could it, you know, how could you move forward in a different way now, knowing these kinds of things? You know, when you think things through in different ways, there are ways to make better decisions, and there are ways to, you know, not leave decisions too long where you can actually fester things on. It's like you've got to learn by trusting that higher force, having a communication there, not with the external, because I think sometimes outside it's all different, changeable. You've got to get that true source of connection, knowing then the true decision, and then you know what you're going to decide. But with any decision, remember, there has to be that connection. Without it, don't make any decision otherwise. I think that's what these two chapters are really bringing forth. That's what I'm seeing anyway in it. So yeah, I hope this has been of use to you. I hope you've enjoyed listening, and I'll be back tomorrow moving on through the book of Genesis. Okay, thanks for being here. See you again soon. Bye.